Hey Basic Travelers, I want to tell you this week about the Basic Travel team's favorite apps when we're traveling. Welcome back guys, and welcome to Travel Tips Tuesday again. And if you are new here, I want to remind you to please follow us on social media on Facebook and Instagram, and you can do that down here. And also make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notifications so that you never miss any of our weekly content. Alright, so let's break it down. I want to show you a few of our favorite apps that we use on the trip. Before the trip to help planning, during the trip to make our life easier, and even after the trip. First, let's talk about TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor is great for researching your destinations for the hotels and or activities to do. I find that it's generally the most honest of all the review sites, because sometimes it seems as if you can pay for reviews on Google or make more fake accounts. I think you generally get the gist on if the property is actually good or not. Generally, when I would go to a hotel, for instance, I'm looking up a hotel in another country or another city, I would look at just the average reviews. And I would also pay attention to if they have a great number of reviews so that that average seems correct. For example, you can definitely filter on 1-star reviews if you want to and see all the bad and negative stuff, or you can say, hey, that guy was probably just pissed off, and we all know that person who gets on there to complain. Generally, I find that the properties that have more reviews and a higher average are pretty trustworthy. You're definitely always going to get people who write something negative, but I think we all know these kind of people, and take those properties that generally have great reviews and the one bad experience with a bit of a grain of salt. Okay, next let's talk a little bit about Lounge Buddy. Obviously, you know we're big fans of airport lounges when we travel. In fact, so much so that generally when I plan, I get on Lounge Buddy before a trip and I look at my origin airports, and if I have options and decisions, I choose the airports that have great lounge options. Generally, we want to get to the airport as close to the flight as possible, but not me. On days when I travel for fun, I generally look forward to the lounge experience. So I hop on Lounge Buddy, I type in my origin airport or any other airports I'm going to visit on the trip, and I identify if I have access to any of the lounges. It will detail what you need to enter, and if you don't have entry access but you really want to visit, it generally tells you the hours and the cost. And you also get some reviews, which is nice. Photos, like we've talked about before with TripAdvisor. Take the reviews with a grain of salt. Hey, they're airport lounges, and generally if they provide decent food and drink, there's not much to complain about, especially if it's already included in something you have a membership with. Okay, let's talk about something that we can use during the trip. Tripit is an app we can use before and after the trip, but generally I find it's great for on the trip, especially if you have a complex itinerary of flights or multiple flights and multiple hotels. So you can do this in two ways. You can input it manually, or you can have your confirmation. So let's say I book a hotel and I get a confirmation. I would then forward that to my Tripit account via email, and it would automatically organize it in a really nice way. You can see here that in the app, I've got my flight, and under it are my hotel details and every applicable thing I would need. I think Google generally does a really good job of this for those of us who have Android phones. Google generally takes all my confirmations and consolidates them into a really nice trip. But for those of us who use iPhones, I find that Tripit is a little bit easier to use. So that's a great app for just keeping organized, especially for those of you I know who love planning. Okay, next, let's talk about XE Currency. So there's a ton of currency conversion apps out there. Generally, a lot of the time if I'm online, I'll just use Google Currency Converter. However, there are times when you're just out of Wi-Fi, or it's just nice to have an offline option for storing currency conversions. So you would go to the country that you might be going to. You would then lock in the most current currency of the day. As you probably know, currencies vary all day, every day, but it would store an offline reference for you to look up when you need it the most. Let's say I'm not too familiar with the country's currency and I need to make a quick decision on something relatively expensive. I don't know, maybe a tour or an activity, and I need to know if I'm getting a good deal or if I'm spending a little bit too much, and I just don't have Wi-Fi. That's a great little resource for looking it up on the go. Another one is Google Translate, which is something you can also use offline. This by far is one of the biggest things I use when I go to foreign countries. You know, English is not always widespread in certain places. It's hard to get around, and even if you're like me and you try to speak language and you have an absolutely terrible accent, then at least you can show them your phone in their local language, and it'll help you be a little. And it shows that you try a little bit. I think generally locals appreciate when you at least make the effort and don't just ask them the same thing in English 3 times, getting louder each time. Guess what? I've seen it. So if you throw whatever you need to translate to them on the app and at least show it to them, or it also has a voice option, which is kind of great. I think that's a really useful app you could use in your travels. Okay, and just a couple honorable mentions. The app Alltrails for us hikers and campers out there is great when you're going to either a new city. This Alltrails app works worldwide. So whether you're going to a national park in the US or you're going on to a foreign place and you just would like a cool place to hike, Alltrails generally has some really cool trail options. Alltrails is great because people who have already previously taken that hike can actually record the route they took. You hope it's correct. It generally is. You can read a ranking on if it's a popular hike or not, but you can actually just trace in their own steps when you pull up the hike that you like and you find that you want to take. I find that's a really cool hike if I haven't had time to do a lot of research, or if I go to a national park where I have a lot of options and I'm not entirely sure, you know, which is the best one to spend my time on. I want to pick 3 of my favorite hikes. I'll go to Alltrails. Like if you've ever been to Zion National Park, there's a ton of choices, and it ranked, let's see, you know, the top 3 hikes I can take in that national park. This is great. It's got great photos. It's got great tracking, so if you lose Wi-Fi for any reason or you lose a trail, you don't get lost. Great resources for hikers. You love Instagram for travel, not just for posting delicious pictures of food in your trip, but maybe you want to get some creative ideas on a cool photo location. Instagram is great for that. Type in the location you want to go to. I can think of a specific example. When I was in Petra, I just didn't know of a great angle to get for a couple of cool photos. And I used Instagram to find some unique angles within the park where it wasn't crowded. You might call that copying. I don't call it copying, I call it inspiration, because I'll never want to take the exact same photo. But if you go to a crowded tourist destination and you don't want to take the same photo, or you might just want to get a little bit more creative, I think Instagram is great for that, for me personally at least. And one more, Netflix. Why Netflix? Netflix is great because if it's something most of us already have, and you can download content, specific content, and it's great for airplanes. Again, places with bad Wi-Fi. Maybe you go to a hotel and the Wi-Fi is just acting up. It happens all the time. But at least you have something to watch on your phone or your tablet or your laptop that you've already downloaded. So don't ever sleep on the Netflix download option. I use it generally mostly for planes, but it's always available for you. So Basic Travelers, I'd love to know what your favorite apps are. There are literally hundreds of apps. I don't have time to go through all of them. I just wanted to give you a couple that the Basic Travel teams knows and loves. And but we'd obviously love to hear your input or your ideas in the comments below. Or hey, don't forget to check out our Basic Travel 101 Insiders Facebook group. We publish content daily about the best travel news, money-saving techniques, cashback options, or credit card news. You'll want to make sure to subscribe to that Facebook group if you haven't already. We've got 4,500 members plus as of today, and we are always growing. So we'd love to see you there and get your feedback. I'm also going to put a short description to each of these apps and link something to it below so that you can get to it quicker. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you found it informative, and we'll see you next week, Basic Travelers.